All right, today we're going to talk about how to avoid an OIG investigation in the first place. Now, most of our clients call us after they've learned about an investigation, but if you're watching this video and you're not under investigation, there are a couple key things you can do to try to avoid one altogether. Welcome to OMG, it's the OIG, a serious look at Office of Inspector General Investigations. My name is Sara Kropf. I'm a lawyer here in Washington, D.C., and we represent individuals, government employees, and federal government contractors in OIG investigations. If you want to get in touch with us or have any questions, all of my contact information is below. Now, most of our clients come to us because there's been an allegation against them. And a lot of the allegations, believe it or not, come from disgruntled people who you supervise. Sometimes they come from your supervisor, sometimes they come from parties outside the government or third-party contractors. But most of the ones we see are reports from someone who you supervise. And that can make it difficult to avoid an OIG investigation. But let's talk about 3 things you can do to try to avoid one, or help yourself if you get into one. All right, the first and best thing you can do is to check with your agency's ethics officer before you do anything. Now, every agency has its own ethics officer. They might be called a designated ethics officer or DEO, and there might be a DEO for your division or your section of the agency. Go look up who that person is on the website and go talk to that person or send them an email about the issue. You want to give the DEO or the ethics officer all the important facts so they can help you evaluate whether what you're thinking about doing is actually okay. They're going to help you evaluate whether it violates any of the government ethics rules, the ethics pledge you may have taken, and so forth. So it's really crucial to check with the ethics official. We've had a lot of employees avoid a bad outcome in an OIG investigation because they checked with their ethics official ahead of time. It's probably the most important and easiest thing you can do. Now, you want to get the ethics official's advice in writing if you can. A conversation is great, and you can draft a memo to file or a memo to yourself that summarizes it. But the best evidence that we've seen is when you've emailed the ethics official, given them the facts, and then they write back to you with the advice. Like, it's okay to hire your wife's sister's cousin's company, or it's okay for you to be looking for a job and still have some involvement in this case at the agency. So you want to get the ethics advice in writing. If you have a conversation with the ethics official, one thing you can do is send a follow-up email. If they haven't sent you their advice in writing, you can send an email to the ethics official, describe your understanding of the advice they gave you, and give them a chance to write you back if you have it wrong. Now, the second thing you can do is very similar to the first. This one is to check with your Office of General Counsel. So these are the in-house lawyers, the lawyers who are within your agency that help advise you. Now, you can go to them in the same way you'd go to your ethics official. You're checking with them to see if what you're doing is legal, whether or not it follows the rules, and so forth. Now, they may send you to the DEO or the ethics official, and that's fine. But it's a good idea to check with the in-house lawyers, particularly about really difficult contracting questions. Things dealing with federal government contracts can be incredibly complicated. And so it's a good idea to check with the lawyers who are in-house to get their advice. That's one of the reasons they're there. I know that no one likes to talk to lawyers. We hear that over and over. But they can be incredibly helpful ahead of time to advise you about what to do and what not to do. And it's also incredibly helpful for your defense if you get into an OIG investigation to show that you checked with your Office of General Counsel or OGC ahead of time, that you were trying to do the right thing. And the third thing you can do to avoid an OIG investigation or to help yourself later is to check with your supervisor. Being transparent with your supervisor or with the people above you in the chain of command about what you're planning to do is incredibly helpful. Put it in an email. Let people know what you're planning to do so they have an opportunity to say, hey, I don't think that's right, or you should go check with someone else, and so forth. Now, this third step is not as helpful as checking with your DEO or with OGC, but is equally helpful. At least it shows that you're trying to do the right thing and that you're checking with your boss first. Now, once you get the advice from your DEO or from OGC or even from your supervisor, this should go without saying, but follow the advice. If they tell you to recuse yourself from something, then you need to recuse yourself. If they tell you not to have any involvement in selecting contractors or picking a certain candidate for a job, you need to make sure you follow that advice to the very ends. No responding to emails about it, no getting yourself in conversations if you've been told not to be involved in it. So it's incredibly important that you not only get the advice, but that you actually follow it. And if you're wondering whether or not you should get the advice, if you're asked to do something, if you're confronted with a situation where you're not sure if what you're about to do is the right thing, follow your gut. If you're worried about telling someone about it ahead of time, then you probably need to get advice about it. If you're not sure it's right, if it might be wrong, then get advice about it before you take the act, any of the acts. It's incredibly important to do this ahead of time. And the other side of the coin is you cannot do this after the fact. So if you have already taken this act, you've already hired somebody you're not sure you should have hired, given a contract to someone you shouldn't have given a contract to, or something else that you're worried about, it's not necessarily going to help you to go confess it to the DEO, to the OGC, or to your supervisor. Now, certainly it can be helpful if it's right after the fact and you really didn't realize there was something wrong and so you immediately want to report it. But generally, you have to think about telling these people after the fact as just a confession. You're basically going to people who will likely refer this matter to the OIG, and you're telling them you did something wrong. So that's incredibly dangerous. If you need advice in that situation, you can call a lawyer, and we can help you talk through the risks. Is it worth it to go now and tell your supervisor, tell the DEO, tell OGC? Or is it better just to keep your mouth shut and see if something happens coming out of it? But these are very difficult decisions and ones you don't want to make on your own. So I hope this advice about how to avoid an OIG investigation is helpful. If you have any questions or are under OIG investigation and want to get in touch, all of our contact information is below. You'll also see a link to our blog called Grand Jury Target, and we have a whole bunch of articles on there about OIG investigations, how to navigate them, questions that come up for our clients. You'll also see a link to an 80-page ebook that we wrote about OIG investigations. So you can read that ebook from start to finish, and it'll give you all the information you need to know about OIG investigations. Thanks for watching.